This is Morpho-Syntax in 4 to 6-year-olds by Julia Steffu, Daniela Rossi, and Hannah Jansen.
I'm Julia Steffu, and this is morphemes. A morpheme is defined as the smallest unit that can stand alone and hold meaning. Different morphemes hold different meanings and can denote tense, subject, and object. Morphemes come in two types, free and bound. Free, just as the name suggests, can stand alone and be complete on their own. Bound needs to be attached to another word to make sense. An example would be adding s, which is the bound morpheme, to cat, which is the free morpheme, to make it plural, now cats. It's important to note that languages differ in their dependence on both syntax and morphology. Some languages use one or the other, or maybe neither. For English, we mainly rely on word order to get the point across. Free morphemes are freestanding words. Lexical morphemes can be considered your open class words, as these are the ones we add bound morphemes to. They're your nouns, verbs, and adjectives. Open class words usually make up the basis of an initial lexicon, but that continues to grow as children become more exposed to less novel words. Functional morphemes, on the other hand, are all other free parts of speech like articles, prepositions, and pronouns. An example would be a, the, and, but, and she. These are known as closed class as we can't add bound morphemes to them to make new words. Bound morphemes also come in two variations. Derivational morphemes completely change the meaning and class of the word. It can add a suffix like ly or er, and prefixes like un, and pre. These can alter the entire meaning of a word, for example, changing happy to unhappy, or mad to madly. Mad to madly is a perfect example of changing a word from an adjective to an adverb just by adding the suffix ly. Inflectional morphemes can only be a suffix, and they usually indicate a change in number or tense, such as adding s to a noun such as cat to cats, or adding ed indicating a change in tense. They can also be a possessive marker like apostrophe s or s apostrophe. Morpho-syntax. Morphemes contribute to syntax by changing sentence structure and meaning. Morphemes change the tense, add plurals, prepositions, articles, etc. Morphemes are the basis of syntax, which causes the meaning of syntactical structure of the sentence to change. These two areas of language go hand in hand in development. Children usually learn these skills through observing patterns as they listen to language. When learning morphosyntax, they usually make assumptions about words they hear. Caregivers don't explain each word they say to a child, telling them the part of speech and definition. That child will test out the word in a sentence to see if they're correct in their assumption or not. The caregiver will provide feedback, and the process will continue as the child learns more words. Syntax. Syntax is the rules that govern sentence structure. Words need to be in a specific order for them to make grammatical sense to the listener. You can't say, Bob car my has, due to the rules of syntax. The sentence is, Bob has my car. Syntax also tells us that sentences must contain a noun and verb phrase. Along with those phrases, we have articles that usually come before a noun and adverbs that modify those verbs. Children will begin to show development in their complexity of noun, verb, prepositional, and infinitive phrase development. As previously mentioned, English usually relies heavily on syntax in order to get our point across to listeners. There are certain expectations of morphology for children aged 4 through 6. They start to exhibit patterns of their morphology knowledge through experimenting. A child is listening through their environment and taking notes of patterns in the language. They start to develop an understanding and begin to exhibit their knowledge through their own language expression.
Hello, this is Daniela, and on this slide I will be talking about the progressive ing. Progressive ing is used to indicate that the action is currently or was recently being done, such as the image shown, kids are swimming. The progressive form usually consists of an auxiliary helping verb like am, is, are, was, or were. But young children usually express what is happening without one. They tend to say, Mommy eating, or I running. Regular plural s. Indicating a plural form seems to be a simple addition of s, like in dogs. This is one of the earliest morphological skills that is mastered. It may seem simple, but it is much more than just that. Children acquiring the plural skill entails some phonological development as well. The ending consonant affects what kind of plural marker is used. If the ending consonant is voiced, then the voiced plural marker is used and vice versa. But these same rules don't apply to words that end in sibilant sounds. Those that end in sibilant sounds use the es plural marker, like in bridges. These phonological skills don't come along until a child is 3.5 or older. Understanding the irregular plural form, like the words mice, feet, and geese, takes longer to understand as well and can depend on a child's environment. Possessive s. The possessive s's are usually placed by young children on animate nouns like mommy's car or doggy's food. Mastery of this skill comes quite early at about age 3, but the phonological development takes much longer to understand and can lead into school years where there is development in their metalinguistics. Regular past ed. This rule indicates the past tense of a verb. This skill usually comes early at about 26 months, but is overgeneralized, which leads children into producing words like falled and eated. Therefore, kids master ed at around 4 years old. This morpheme includes some phonological variation as well. The past tense ed can vary from using the unvoiced t or voiced d, which is common. The other variation includes the ed sound or the ld sound in words like waited or landed. There's also the irregular past tense verbs such as hurt, got, and told. Those are usually the words that children will overgeneralize with the ending ed. Regular third person singular s. The s marker for regular third person singular is indicated by the person and number of the subject present in the sentence. An example of this is, the dog eats too much. Forms that remain unmarked by the third person singular s are pronouns like I, you, we, and they. A sentence with those pronouns never uses a regular third person singular s, as it wouldn't make sense. Development of third person takes relatively long to completely understand. These skills appear early, around 3.5 to 4 years, but there is a lot of inconsistent use as they age. Noun and adjective suffixes. Young children, specifically school age, start to acquire adjective comparatives and superlatives like er and est. They attach those suffixes to create words like bigger and taller. Some forms may take longer, like the words better and best, and learning words that simply don't exist but children make up, like funner. The suffix er is also found when attaching it to a noun, indicating that it is performing the action, such as teacher or player, which is normally understood by age 5. There are also several other derivational noun suffixes like man and salesman. The most irregular form is dentist, gymnast, and pediatrician. These words don't follow the same derivational suffix, but still indicates the same meaning, which supports why some children may take longer to understand the skill.
Hi, this is Hannah Jansen. In this slide, we're going to talk about the expectations of syntax for ages 4 to 6. From 4 to 6, children formulate more complex sentences. Their noun and verb phrase start to expand with adjectives, articles, auxiliary verbs, and prepositions. Let's look at how those sentences can transform from I eated cookies to I ate my favorite cookie. Noun phrase development. Noun phrases begin when a child starts to combine words. They help kids describe something such as my dirty room. Noun phrases can take years for a child to develop and perfect. A child's initial vocabulary consists mostly of nouns, so noun phrases are easier to produce and add on to. Elements of a noun phrase include an indicator, determiner, adjective, noun, and modifier. These are broad categories and can be broken down into even smaller groups. Children learn very early on that adjectives come before nouns and that adjectives and articles do not come before proper nouns. So you do not say, the Hannah. Most kids by age 3 are using articles, possessive pronouns, and adjectives. They understand pronouns such as small shoe, but have a hard time with postnoun modifiers such as toy is in the house. This skill is developed around age 4. Age 4 is also where prepositional phrases and demonstratives come in. Language is beginning to become more refined. At age 5, children perfect the use of adding descriptors to their nouns, such as articles, adjectives, possessive pronouns, or numerical terms. Towards age 6, their sentences start to include more possessive pronouns, such as the sentence, his large green boat. Verb phrase development. Verbs start to appear during a child's single word phrase development. When a child is first learning verbs, they don't think of it as a verb, but rather as a new word, and later figure out the syntactic use of each word to create combinations. Elements of verb phrases include modal auxiliaries, perfective auxiliaries, verb to be's, negatives, passives, verbs, prepositional phrases, noun complements, and adverbial phrases. Irregular past tense verbs are among the most problematic to children due to the fact that you can't just add an ed to the end to make it past tense. So, an example would be the word build. Past tense is built. You can't say, I builded this. The development of irregular past tense. By age 3.5, so 3.5, they have hit and hurt. By 4, they have went. By 4.5, saw. By age 5, gave and ate. Usually by 46 months, a child can produce both regular and irregular verbs. Next are auxiliary verbs. These are helping verbs, normally appearing around 30 months. Many times the auxiliary verbs are used incorrectly, so not using the proper tense. By 40 months, auxiliaries appear as negatives and interrogatives. Copulas are referred to as the main verb, followed by a noun or an adjective. Copulas are developed a little faster than auxiliaries, but both are mastered by age 4. Prepositional phrases are used to describe location or where things are spatially. The earliest prepositional phrases are in and on. By age 3, kids are very comfortable using prepositions with 3 items. For example, Mommy, put juice in my cup. At this stage, prepositions are normally only used at the end of sentences, but as the child continues growing, their prepositional phrases begin to be used in different locations, such as, it is now time for them to go to the office with Daddy. For them and to the office with Daddy, those are both prepositional phrases. Infinitive phrase development typically develops between age 2 and 3. At around 2.5, kids develop semi-infinitives such as gonna and wanna. By 3, they are shortening as many words as they can, so now they have gonna, wanna, gotta, have-to, and supposed-to, and they're all being regularly used. The infinitive to is the most common infinitive to be skipped over in the initial development. From 2 to 5, infinitives changed from singular nouns to third-person pronouns. So the child is now talking about what other people are doing. They begin to have a broader understanding of language, such as knowing what remembering and forgetting is, and using noun phrases in between 2 verbs. Infinitive phrases are now being used in longer sentences. Originally, infinitives only appeared at the end of sentences, but now they can be found dispersed in a sentence. For an example, we're gonna make a cake together. Gonna make is an infinitive phrase. Sentence development. Children as early as 27 months start to use prepositional phrases, and those continue to become more refined as they get older. Their sentences can go from I in the tub to I'm going to the zoo with Daddy for my birthday. Infinitive phrases are similar in the sense that they get more complex with age. Children will begin to replace single nouns and third-person pronouns. They will also introduce negative infinitives like I don't, I won't, I didn't. At 4 years old, children begin to develop declarative sentences using indirect and direct objects in a sentence, such as throw me the ball. By 5, they begin to add subjects into the mix and increase their complex sentences by joining small sentences with conjunctions such as and or because. They can also understand passive sentences like the flower was picked by me, which is the hardest to understand for a younger child. By age 6, their sentences become complex with multiple embeddings and conjoined clauses such as so, therefore, although, before, after. Interrogatives are naturally the question we hear the most often from young children. Is their ability to gain information regarding something. WH questions are the most common, like, where are you? What do you like? Why do I have to go? But by age 5, most children have most sentences typed under their belt. Atypical morpho-syntax development. Since we've already talked about what a typical development looks like, we're going to talk about what an atypical development looks like for autism. According to the study done by Informa Healthcare at Monash University, they wanted to test to see how autism affected a child's ability to develop morphology and syntax skills. They tested different areas of grammar from noun and verb phrases, sentence order, knowing tense of words, and more. The university had 3 groups, a group of autistic children, a group of typically developing kids, and a group of kids who were developmentally delayed but did not have autism. All the kids were in between the ages 3 and 6. With this, they could see where each group of kids were developmental-wise and figure out which areas of grammar each group was falling behind in. Testing the skills. At Monash University, they did tests on the typically developing kids, the children with autism, and the developmentally delayed kids without autism. They did 4 tests, and each of the tests showed where the kids were grammar-wise. One of the tests was the test for auditory comprehension of language. This measured receptive language skills such as vocabulary, morphology, and syntax. Children are shown 3 pictures and asked to indicate which picture goes along with the word, phrase, or sentence said by the examiner. Next, the structured photographic expressive language test. This test examines expressive language skills, including plurals, prepositions, and conjunctions. It provides an overall morphology and syntax score. Children are asked to complete sentences and describe pictures using proper grammar. The next test was the Index of Productive Syntax. This measured expressive, morphological, and syntactical skills. The score is calculated through 100 utterances from a child's speech. This will help see where the child is in speaking noun phrases, verb phrases, questions, negations, and sentence structure. From this test, you can also determine the MLU, mean length utterance. The last test was the WUGS test, and they used a made-up object, such as the WUG, to ensure that the child wasn't tested on memorization of previous words, but their ability to know correct grammar. The example is, this is a WUG. If there are 2, I have 2 blank. The answer would be WUGs. Standardizing language tests do not catch every weakness a child shows in morphology and syntax. According to the journal article, Syntax and Morphology in Danish-Speaking Children with Autism Spectrum Disorder. Such studies in children with high-functioning autism can be shown as inconclusive. High-functioning children without early language delays with high IQs and advanced level of vocabulary skills usually have less impairment within the category of morpho-syntax than children with lower IQ. Despite that, When these categories are measured carefully, even such high-functioning children can show difficulties and show specific impairments with morpho-syntax. A study done by Informal Healthcare at Monash University found that kids between ages 3 and 6 who have autism struggle with verb phrases, noun phrases, and sentence structure. They have a lower MLU than children who are developmentally typical and developmentally delayed children. With this, it will affect their ability to use morpho-syntax. This study aided in finding what children with autism struggle with most in order to focus on how to improve the skills. The goal is to aid these children in their morpho-syntax development so that it is more like a typically developing kid. In their conclusion, they stated that there was no real conclusion because they did find areas where the kids were struggling in, so the teachers could focus more on that. But in a lot of the tests that they did, they were lower than the typically developing kids and the developmentally delayed kids, but it wasn't so significant that they could say it was atypical.